The envelope tumbled from Eric's desk drawer. An unexpected bombshell I never meant to uncover while searching for stamps. There, hidden among gambling receipts and ominous letters signed Damien, lay the proof. Our life savings had been gambled away. I am Camille, a working mom who just 5 minutes ago was balancing bills and bedtime stories. Now, I held the damning evidence of a betrayal I couldn't ignore. Who are you? And what are you doing in my office? Eric's voice cut through the silence. He stood in the doorway, his familiar confident smirk replaced by something far more menacing. I was just looking for stamps, I replied, lifting the envelope with trembling fingers. Explain this, please. His anger flickered, then gave way to shock. Put that down, Camille. You don't understand. But I do, I insisted internally. The second mortgage on our house. Zoe's vanished college fund. Every ruined promise lay before me. It's your fault, he spat, stepping forward. If you hadn't been so tight with our finances. A bitter laugh escaped me, more a choked sob than amusement. Tight? I was saving for our daughter's future, while you squandered everything at the casino. Reaching desperately for the envelope, he murmured, I can fix this. I jerked it away. How much do we have left? I demanded. His silence said it all. A small voice drifted in from the hallway. Mommy? Why are you and Daddy yelling? I blinked back, tears. Everything's fine, sweetie. Go finish your homework. Her footsteps faded, leaving the heavy tension to settle between us. I turned back to Eric. How are we supposed to pay for her dance classes? Her braces? I pressed. I'm willing to fix it. Before he could answer, he snatched the envelope from me, and that's when I saw it. Another name scrawled in the chaos. Jason Reed. Who's Jason Reed? I asked, voice trembling. In an instant, Eric's face darkened. He slammed the drawer shut with such force the desk quivered. Stay away from that name, Camille. I mean it. Or what? What else can you steal from us? I challenged. His grip tightened around my arm, cold fingers biting. I'm warning you. Let go, I said, each word like ice. He released me, stepping back as his voice faltered. This is your fault, you pushed me to this. I walked to the door, paused, then turned back with a final resolute glare. No, Eric. You did this all on your own. And I promise you'll regret it. As I left, I heard him shuffling through scattered papers, a frantic symphony of ruin. But I already had what I needed. A name, a first thread to unravel the lies he built his life upon. Jason Reed. Whoever you are, be ready. You and I have some very interesting business to discuss. Finding Chris was easier than I'd expected. A few LinkedIn searches, one desperate phone call, and soon I was sitting across from him in a quiet downtown coffee shop. He looked just as his profile promised. A sharp suit, graying temples, eyes that had seen too much. So you're Eric's wife, he said, stirring his untouched coffee. Soon-to-be ex-wife, I corrected softly. He leaned back. And we both know what kind of man Eric really is. His laugh was bitter. Lady, you have no idea. Try me, I replied, my voice steadier now. He gambled away Zoe's college fund, took out a second mortgage without telling me, and apparently owes money to someone named Damien. His coffee froze mid-sip. Damien? He's still involved with Damien? You know him. Damien isn't someone you want to know, I warned. Chris leaned forward, his tone urgent. Listen, Camille, whatever you're planning, don't. Just take your daughter and walk away. I can't, I whispered. Eric's made sure I have nothing to walk away with. I slid the envelope toward him. But look at this, documents about your old partnership. His jaw clenched. That was 3 years ago. When did Eric force you out of your own company? The one you built from scratch. He didn't force me out. He framed me for embezzlement. The words cut deep. Chris's knuckles whitened around his cup. It cost me my reputation, nearly ruined my marriage. It took 2 long years to clear my name. Help me, I pleaded. Help me take him down before he destroys anyone else. The coffee shop fell silent between us. A fragile pause charged with the weight of our shared scars and the promise of reckoning. Why should I trust you? I demanded, my voice tight with desperation. For all I know, this could be another one of Eric's tricks. I pulled out my phone. Look, my bank account. 0 balance. I then showed him a picture of Zoe. This is my daughter. She's 8. Everything I saved for her future is gone. I took a deep breath. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to help me protect her. Chris's eyes lingered on the photos. I remembered Eric's cruel jibes, calling me a trophy wife clueless about business, but I knew his words were nothing more than lies. Slowly, a small smile played at the corners of his mouth. You know what, Camille? I think I'm starting to like you. So, will you let me help? Only on one condition, he said, producing his phone. He slid a document across to me. This is proof of what Eric did to my company. I've held on to it for 3 years waiting for the right moment. A spark of hope stirred in me. When do we start? Right now, he replied, eyes gleaming. Then his tone shifted. But there's something else you need to know about Damien. He might be exactly the ally we need. Damien's office defied my expectations. Instead of a dingy back room, we found ourselves in a sleek downtown high-rise, its floor-to-ceiling windows bathing the room in natural light. Sitting across from him, I watched as he scanned the documents we'd brought. Your husband? Damien asked softly. He owes me nearly $500,000. The number struck me like a blow. $500,000, and that was just his debt to Damien. He slid a folder across the desk. These are IOUs from 6 other creditors. The total is closer to $2 million. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. This can't be real, I whispered. Oh, it's very real, Damien said, leaning in. So what do you plan to do about it? Before I could speak, my phone buzzed. A text from my sister Natalie. 911, call me now. I slipped into the hallway. Lex, where are you? Natalie's voice was urgent. Eric's at my house looking for you. He's in a frenzy about some missing documents. He thinks you're trying to ruin him. She paused, lowering her tone. He's drunk, Lex. I've never seen him like this. Don't let him know anything. I'll handle it. Back in the office, Chris and Damien looked up as I returned. Problem? Chris asked quietly. Eric's unraveling, I said. He's at Natalie's place, drunk and furious. Damien's expression darkened. Then we need to act fast. Your husband isn't just a gambler, Lexus. He's been embezzling funds to cover his debts. How do you know? I murmured. Because I've seen the wire transfers. He pulled up a file on his computer. Every time he loses big, money mysteriously appears in corporate accounts. Last week he siphoned nearly $50,000 from the employee pension fund. Chris whistled softly. That's federal territory. Exactly. Damien turned his steely gaze on me. I'll help you expose him. But know this, once we start there's no going back. He'll likely face criminal charges. Another buzz, Natalie again. He's asking about someone named Chris. The message read. He'll find out what you're planning. I showed it to Chris. He immediately stood. We need to go now, he said. Wait, Damien interjected, handing me a business card. This is my private number. Call me tomorrow. And Lexus. His eyes locked with mine. Be careful. Men like Eric are most dangerous when cornered. In the elevator, Chris turned to me. Are you sure you want to continue? This is getting serious. I paused, thinking of Zoe, our empty bank account, and Eric's drunken threats. I'm sure, I said firmly. But we need to move fast. Good, Chris replied, checking his phone. My wife Tessa just texted. Eric's been calling her too. Things are about to get messy. Then I glanced at Chris's laptop. My blood ran cold as I saw the financial records. What did he do? I asked, voice trembling. Your husband didn't just steal from the pension fund, Chris explained, scrolling through the data. He created fake employees and ghost accounts. Look at these names. Each one received regular payments for 2 years. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have vanished into gambling debts. Before I could process the horror, the door burst open, making us both jump into a silence filled with dread and anticipation. Tessa stormed into the room, her cheeks burning with anger. Eric just called again, she said, voice trembling. He threatened to expose our tax records unless Chris backs off. And he claims he's got proof of fraud. Chris's face drained of color. Proof? I challenged quietly. He's bluffing like he always does. But Chris's grip tightened as he ran his hands through his hair. Maybe not, he murmured. Remember those documents he used to frame me? He might have kept copies. Before I could press further, my phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. Lex, Eric showed up at Zoe's school today. My heart seized. What? I gasped. He tried to pick her up early. Thank God you'd already removed him from the approved list. The principal had to call security. I reached for my keys, intent on leaving, but Chris caught my arm. Where are you going? He demanded. To get my daughter, I replied. Then Tessa interjected, her tone suddenly firm. I'll drive. We all turned to her. You're shaking, Camille, she observed softly. And we need to talk anyway. The drive to the school was thick with silence. Tessa's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Finally, she broke the quiet. I didn't trust you at first, she admitted, eyes flickering with past hurt. I thought, you might be colluding with Eric to set Chris up. But now I see what Chris sees. A mother fighting for her child. Her voice dropped to a pained whisper. When Eric framed Chris, we almost lost everything. Our home, our savings. Even our marriage nearly shattered. I met her gaze, swallowing the lump in my throat. Don't be sorry, I replied. Be smart. Eric's desperate and dangerous. Whatever we plan must be bulletproof. We arrived just in time. Zoe burst from the schoolyard, running into my arms. Mommy, Daddy was acting weird. He scared me. I held her tight, offering a soothing smile as I met Tessa's resolute eyes overhead. My phone buzzed again, this time from Chris. Found something big. Eric didn't just steal from the pension fund. He's been selling company secrets to competitors. Got proof. Tessa leaned over, reading the message. Looks like we finally have our bulletproof, she said grimly. I hugged Zoe closer, feeling a spark of triumph mixed with dread. We had the evidence to take Eric down, but surviving his next move was its own battle. Later that night, as I tucked Zoe into bed at Natalie's safe house, her small voice broke the fragile calm. Mommy, are you and Daddy getting divorced? I paused, heart heavy. Why do you ask, sweetie? Tommy at school said that when parents fight like you and Daddy, they get divorced. And I might have to choose who to live with. Her grip on her stuffed rabbit tightened as tears welled in her eyes. Sitting on the edge of her bed, I fought back my own. You don't have to choose anything. I promise. I'm here to protect you always. My phone vibrated again. This time it was Damien. I stepped into the hallway to take the call. Hello. Camille, we have a problem. Damien's voice was clipped, urgent. Eric's other creditors are growing impatient. They're talking about collecting their debts aggressively. What does that mean? I asked, anxiety creeping in. It means we need to move faster. Days maybe. One of them already vandalized Eric's car. Next time they might not stop at just cars. His words left no room for doubt. Natalie emerged from the kitchen, offering a cup of tea as I switched the phone to speaker. The board meeting is in 3 days, Damien continued. Everyone will be there, investors, partners, the press. And Camille. He paused. Watch your back. Eric's been making dangerous friends lately. After hanging up, Natalie grabbed my arm. Are you sure about this? Maybe we should go to the police. I sank onto the couch, weary. With what? Everything's in Eric's name. He'd twist it around and make me look crazy. The board meeting is our best shot. Another buzz, this time from Chris. Tessa found more files. Eric's been selling company secrets for over a year. Meeting tomorrow morning. I confirmed our next steps just as Zoe's voice called out from her room. Mommy, can you check under my bed? Is Monster Patrol on duty? A small smile tugged at Natalie's lips. Just like when we were kids. I returned to Zoe's room, quickly checking under the bed, in the closet, and behind the curtains. All clear, baby, I reassured her, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. No monsters here. Promise. Back in the living room, Natalie was hunched over her laptop. Lex, come look at this, she said, pointing to an email chain between Eric and someone named Dominic. My hands began to shake as I read the exchange. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about lives being torn apart. In that silent, charged moment, I realized our fight had grown far beyond what any of us had imagined. Every step forward was a step deeper into a dangerous war. A war we had no choice but to win. We had only 3 days to stop it. In the boardroom, tension crackled like static. I sat between Chris and Tessa, watching Eric stride in with a swagger that said he still owned the place, if only for the moment. Before we begin, I'd like to address some malicious rumors, Eric announced, his trademark smile in place. But before he could continue, Chris rose. We have evidence to present first. Eric's smile faltered. Chris, what are you doing here? I'm here as my representative, I replied, standing alongside several others. At that moment, Damien entered with 2 suited men, and right behind them Dominic, Eric's former IT director and the very man from the emails. What is this? Eric's voice climbed, edged with panic. Dominic's reply was quiet and measured. Security won't come. They're busy reviewing footage of you entering the building at 3 a.m. last Tuesday. The timing was as impeccable as it was damning, precisely when the pension fund records were altered. Eric lunged for his briefcase, but Tessa was faster. She slid a USB drive across the table to the board chairman. Everything's there, she said softly. The embezzlement, the fake employees, the stolen trade secrets, even emails detailing plans to liquidate the company's assets. These are lies, Eric roared. She's my wife, ex-wife, I interjected, my tone even. As of this morning. Not lies, Eric, they're your own records, I added as the chairman plugged in the drive. As the damning documents filled the screen, Eric's face shifted from angry red to ashen despair. You can't, he stuttered. Can't protect your daughter from your gambling, can't hide how you've cheated everyone here. Can't prove you're not a fraud, I said, stepping closer. His desperation was palpable. I can fix this, he pleaded. I just need time. Time's up, Damien declared coolly. Other creditors are already in talks with the FBI. In an instant, chaos erupted. Directors shouted, papers flew. Phones emerged, recording every moment. And then amid the uproar, Eric laughed. A cold, brittle sound that sent shivers down my spine. You think you've won? He sneered, pulling out his phone. One call and my offshore accounts vanish. Accounts holding what's left of the pension fund, the emergency reserves, everything. A heavy silence fell. The chairman murmured, You wouldn't. Try me, Eric taunted, his finger hovering ominously over his phone. I go down, everyone goes down, especially you, Camille. I stepped forward, a slight, unwavering smile on my face. Make the call, Eric. His eyes narrowed. What? Go ahead, try to access those accounts. Dominic. I prompted. Clearing his throat, Dominic replied. All offshore accounts were frozen 20 minutes ago. Federal authorities are already tracking the money. Eric's phone clattered onto the table. For the first time, genuine fear flashed in his eyes. How? He whispered. You taught me well, I said quietly. Always have a backup plan. Then the boardroom doors burst open. This time, FBI agents flooded the room. You have no idea what you've done, Eric snarled as the agents advanced. This isn't over, Camille, he spat. Actually, it is, I countered, raising my phone to reveal the recording app. Every word you just said about those offshore accounts, that's your confession. The lead FBI agent stepped forward. Mr. Warren, you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and corporate espionage. As they read him his rights, Eric's mask finally shattered. Wait, I can give you names, bigger names, people who helped move the money like Damien, he blurted. Eric's head snapped toward me. Without a moment's hesitation, Damien stepped forward and flashed his badge. Special Agent Roberts, FBI Financial Crimes Unit. Thanks for making this so easy, Eric. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Eric's face drained of color. You were FBI this whole time? I asked, disbelief cracking through my calm. We've been building this case for months, Damien replied coolly. And your wife just closed it. I couldn't help but interject with a smirk. Ex-wife. The sound of that word made Eric flinch, a tiny victory in a long-fought battle. As the agents escorted him out, Eric's desperate tone sliced through the murmurs. The pension fund, I can get it back. I just need it. Chris cut in sharply. It's already back. While Eric was busy shouting threats, Dominic had completed the transfer. Every penny was restored to the employees' accounts. The boardroom erupted in applause, a cathartic release after months of tension. Eric's shoulders slumped, the weight of his crumbling empire finally setting in. Camille, what about Zoe? She needs her father, he pleaded, his voice breaking. You should have thought about that before you gambled away her future, I said softly, stepping closer. She deserves better than you. You've destroyed me, he whispered, the admission laced with raw pain. No, Eric, you destroyed yourself. I only made sure you couldn't drag anyone else down with you. In that charged silence, Natalie appeared in the doorway. Is it done? She asked. I nodded slowly, exhaling the breath I'd held for weeks. The board chairman cleared his throat, his tone tentative. Mrs. Warrenmuth Bennett, we owe you our gratitude and an apology. We should have seen the signs. What matters is that it's over, I said. The employees have their pensions back, and the company survives. Chris arched an eyebrow. Speaking of survival, what are you going to do now? I looked around at the faces that had risked everything: Chris, Tessa, Natalie, Dominic, and Damien. Each had fought for the truth. I smiled. Now, I make sure this never happens to anyone else. How? Tessa pressed. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Natalie's husband. Zoe's asking when you're coming home. She says she has big news about her science project. I gathered my things. First, I'm going to hug my daughter. Then tomorrow we start rebuilding. I stepped onto the stage of the packed auditorium, my voice steady and clear. Financial literacy is your most powerful weapon. Knowledge isn't just power, it's protection. The audience of women burst into applause, their approval echoing like a promise. Afterward, as I scanned the room, I spotted Zoe in the front row with Natalie, her eyes shining with pride. Mom, you were amazing, she whispered, then ran up and hugged me like I was her superhero. Chris approached with Tessa. The best kind of superhero, he said. One who helps people protect themselves. A young woman, notebook clutched tightly, stepped forward. Ms. Bennett, your story about Eric. It's exactly what's happening to me. I didn't know what to do until today. I handed her my card. Come to my office tomorrow. We'll help you get your life back. Tessa beamed. The last of the pension funds hit the accounts this morning. Every employee got everything they were owed, plus interest. Then my phone buzzed again. A text from Damien. Eric took the plea deal. 10 years, no parole, full restitution. Natalie glanced at me. Good news. I smiled, a bittersweet curve of my lips. The best kind, justice. A reporter edged forward, notebook in hand. Ms. Bennett, your financial literacy program for women has exposed 3 major fraud cases in just 2 months. What's next? I looked at Zoe, who was showing Tessa her latest science project. Next, we ensure the next generation of women never needs a program like this. They grow up knowing their worth and their rights. Is that why you're opening the new advocacy center? The reporter asked. Partly, I replied, gesturing toward Chris and Tessa. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about building something better from the ashes they leave behind. Later that evening, Zoe and I walked home through the park. She squeezed my hand. Mom, I'm glad you're not sad anymore. I knelt to meet her gaze. What do you mean, sweetie? You used to look scared and sad when Dad was here. Now you look strong. Like the mom I always knew you were. I paused, my heart full. You made me strong, Zoe. Everything I did for you. And now you help other moms be strong too. She smiled, and just then my phone buzzed again. Another woman needed help. Another story waiting for change. This time I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Because sometimes the best endings aren't endings at all. They're beginnings in disguise.